Well, thank you again for coming. My name is Peter Frank, and I'll be leading our presentation for free productivity apps your church staff can use today. So I am the Senior Marketing Manager of Church Supplies at Concordia Publishing House. I've got my contact information there. Feel free to reach out to me at any time. I was talking to a gentleman before who is debating between two different sessions, like, well, just call me at any time. I'm happy to talk through some of these ideas with you. So I want to start off with a story, and the lighting in here makes it a little hard to see this picture. This picture is of thank you very much, my grandpa in the middle, my great-grandpa here, my great-great-grandpa, and my dad there. But I want to talk about my grandpa here. So when I think about my grandpa, I think about his tools in his garage back home. Now, the Frank family had in Portland, Indiana, the Frank Nurseries, which is not the big brand Frank Nurseries that you might think. It was a little operation, and they burned down when my grandpa was a teenager, and so my dad never really got to work on it. But my grandpa in his Chicago home has in his garage a ton of tools all the way across the wall, kind of like this. And whenever I think of him always having the right tool at the right time. Well, this is my grandpa now, and this is the next generation of Franks. That's my son. This is about 5 years ago. He's much larger now. But that's my grandpa, and he's gotten quite a bit older. He's still doing well. I just got to see him a few weeks ago. But he's got a different tool now that he uses. He can't make it out to the garage like he used to, even though all his tools are still there. And so his tool today is this one right here. And it's amazing how many times he uses that. And what I realize as I see how he uses this tool is that it wasn't that he actually had a tool for every occasion. He just always found a tool for that occasion. He made it work. And I see how he uses this it's just got the two knives. I think this one has a screwdriver. He uses the knife as a screwdriver, opens gifts at Christmas time. So this is his tool today, and he finds a variety of different uses for it. It's not this kind of thing where it's a one size fits all. It's really just a tool that he uses for a variety of different purposes. And that's what I want to talk about today, is to help add multifunctional tools to your toolbox as church workers. So the outline, I've got 4 different apps I'm going to show. I do not work with these groups at all in any ways. They're not paying me to be here. I'm just a fan, and if you talk to my coworkers, they can tell you how much of a fan I am, because we use all of these, except for the last one. We have a different alternative to that, but I'll talk about that when we get there. So we're going to talk about Asana, Airtable, Slack, and IFTTT. Have you heard of any of these tools? All right, get some nods. How many of you have heard of Asana? All right, nobody. How many of Airtable? I'm guessing Slack then is what you guys have heard of. Yep, Slack has grown in popularity really quickly. And then IFTTT. All right, good. We've got one IFTTT person in here. Very good. Well, you've heard of it. Okay, very good. All right. Well, Asana is where we're going to start. And Asana is a project management tool. We at CPH had a project management tool that is meant for business purposes, but it didn't quite work for my regular activities of my work. It was meant for creating products. But we do a lot more than just create products. So as I was looking for a new tool, I think it was 13 or 14 total project management softwares that I looked at. And I settled on Asana for a number of reasons, and I just love it. And that's why we've implemented it on my team, and then have rolled it out to some other teams. Our whole marketing group uses it, and I'll show you why. So they say, and I'll put a quote from each company here just so you can see what they say it is. Asana is the easiest way for teams to track their work and get results. All of these have some sort of an app. I think out of all of them, Asana's app is probably the most different experience from their desktop application. They're also all web apps too, so they're all accessible online. But I think they did a good job of having the dual purpose of what it's meant to be on your phone versus on the desktop. So we'll get into a few of their features next. This is their task view. So on the left-hand side, you have all of the tasks, and you click on one, and the right-hand side it appears. And by the way, I had to take screenshots of everything because we weren't sure how the internet would work here, so that's why it's not just a live presentation. So what you can do in here is you can create categories of tasks as well as projects that assign tasks. So you can have subcategories within the products. And all you have to do is click on there and add a colon, and it creates that divider. So that's really cool. You can assign tasks to people, as you would expect with a project management software. And then the dates, you can choose to have a date on it. You can choose to have it be completely blank. You could put a time on it. And that was one of the things that I was looking for too, is the ability to have flexibility with dates, because I was using Outlook tasks before that, and I found that I was assigning dates that didn't mean anything, but just dates to get them in the right order. So we'll go to the next view here. You can also look at your same tasks in a calendar view, which is very useful if you are if you're launching something. So I think about church communications and when you're sending out the newsletter and when you're sending emails out. Seeing where everything is coming. If you've got a plan, that helps. And if you don't have a plan, this helps you build that plan. You can look at this in a Kanban view. Are you familiar with Kanbans? It's a thing that has become very popular. I see a few head nods. And I believe it's coming from Japan. We had a whole conversation about how to pronounce it one time, and I lost where it actually came from. But it is pronounced Kanban. I think it's Japan. And what it is you've got these tiles where you create columns and you can drag and drop. And so for different projects, you could drag and drop the tiles from one place to the next. I have found this to be less useful than I thought for me. I had originally set up my daily to-do list of, what's in progress, what am I waiting on, and I ended up going back to a list view. This was really easy to update, but it was harder for me to comprehend all of that. So that's why I know that there are a lot of people who really respond to that. Trello is a tool that came out. Yeah, there you go. See, they've got that Kanban view. I think they're the ones who made it most popular, and Asana kind of followed suit to add something similar. So that's another way you can use it. They also have this dashboard view, which I don't use. I really thought I would, and then I found that it was not as helpful to me either. But they've put a lot of cool things on there. The nice thing about that is you could put status updates. And so if you've got projects that you're passing off, your coworkers, your other staff people could add the status update for you so you could see where that's at. So I could see that being useful in a number of ways. It just hasn't been for us. Thanks for coming in. Sorry you guys are jumping right in. We're talking about Asana. Asana is a project management app. All right, so here are some of the things that I really like about Asana. So all my tasks in one place. And this was one of my primary concerns as I was looking for a project management tool, was that I didn't have multiple to-do lists in different places. So when I was using Outlook, I had my I had tasks that I would add in there. I'd have my emails. I would convert those into tasks. But then the rest of my team couldn't see that. And so there'd be tasks that we'd be working on together that I would keep in a separate spreadsheet. Or like our marketing activities would be in a spreadsheet. And so I had these different to-do lists. Having Asana allows me to put it all in one place. And it's also really easy to add. And that was one of the key things for me as I was going through there, is how quickly could I add a task to my to-do list. And with Asana, it's literally one click and you start typing. And you can do that from anywhere and move the task around. The one that came in second place for me is a very popular one called Basecamp. I found that was a bit harder to get to the task because it was so project-based. And I really wanted something that was a little bit more flexible. So the multiple tiers is also a key thing for me. You can have your projects and you can assign tasks within projects, but you don't have to assign a project to a task. And that's key for me because there's things that come up that don't really fit under a project. They're just one-off tasks, or maybe they're regular reoccurring tasks like enter my time card that doesn't really fit into a project. And so I like that. But then there's also multiple tiers of subtasks. So for any task, you can have subtasks. For any subtask, you can have subtasks, and you can really keep going down more and more. And so I like that too. I try to only leave it at project, task, and subtask, but you can do all of that. The adding the tasks without projects, I did already mention that, and then assigning tasks to other people. And this was really key for me. And obviously, as a manager, I like to delegate tasks to my team, but I also like it when they need something from me to be able to assign things to me so that I don't get lost, or so my things that they're waiting on don't get lost in the shuffle. So those are the key things I like about Asana. There's one more. I forgot about this. Convert emails to tasks. This was a kind of a deal breaker for me because I was coming from Outlook where I could flag an email, and I needed something that would allow me to convert my emails to tasks. And so out of the 13, 14 or so that I had reviewed, Asana had the best way of handling emails into tasks. And there's one email that I send, all I have to do is I click A and it's Asana at something, and I forward my emails and it automatically creates a task. It copies the attachments, which is wonderful because you can, and I forgot to mention that, you can store files on there as well. And so this allows me to have that one funnel where everything goes. So what I don't like about it, no good way to show meetings. It doesn't sync with my calendar. And so my calendar are to-do items, but they're not really like on a to-do list. The meeting's going to come, I'm going to get my notifications. So that's one thing I don't like. I've tried, that was when I was on the Kanban view, I tried adding all my meetings to that as well so that I would know, and it's just got to be too much of a hassle. No two-way sync with other applications, and we'll talk about that a little while later, the one-way sync between multiple apps. So it doesn't have that, at least not any of the applications that I use on a regular basis. And then they have a feature in there called Inbox, which allows you to see any changes to tasks if people add updates. I have tried to use that because it would seem to be good to get updates in real time, but there's just so much coming in, and most of it is not as relevant for me. So I don't use that, but I could see where that would be beneficial. And finally, the communication isn't as good as Slack, and we're going to be talking about Slack in a little bit. But Asana does have a communication tool where you can have conversations and tag people. I find that I just enjoy Slack much better. It's easier for our team to communicate. So we use Asana as our to-do list. That is our project management, and it works out really well. So applications for churches, obviously tracking individual to-do lists. Even if your staff doesn't use it, you yourself could use it for a to-do list. Tracking your staff's to-do list is key though as well, to be able to see what everybody else is doing. And the cross-linking in there is fantastic. If I click in on a person's name, it takes me to their to-do list. I can search and pull up any member on my team and say, okay, what are they working on? What are their priorities? See how they have it sorted. We can sort it by date. So that's been really good for me as well to help manage. As my team has grown, I haven't been able to spend as much one-on-one time with them, but this allows me to see what they're working on. Managing larger projects like a VBS, having that ability to include a large number of people, maybe not all on your church staff, would be a way to use Asana. So you can invite people. Their free version allows up to 15 members on a team, and you can be in as many teams as you need to be. So you may have a church staff team and a VBS team. The downside to doing that would be that you'd have to get your volunteers on board with using this checklist, and that could be tough. But it's so easy to use that if there's anything they could pick up quickly, it would be Asana. All right. any questions before I move on to Airtable? And I'll definitely stick around at the end for questions. Yes?
For those of us who just got a little bit late,
Yeah.
what is Asana and where does we find it?
Oh, sure. So, well, I have all the URLs at the very end. Asana is project management software, and you can go to asana.com, asana.com, and I'll have all of those for you. They all have free versions, all the apps I'm talking about today. There is a paid version of Asana that we have not used. So there's some cool features in there that I kind of drool over from time to time, like adding custom fields and that, but it's not worth the price. The price jumps really quickly.
How many are on your paid staff?
On my team, I think we're up to 7 of us, but our organization, we've got, I think, 36 people using it, all in our marketing team.
And free version actually.
Yep. The free version covers it for us. So yeah, especially for churches, I don't think it would be worth the price. It's been a little while since I looked at it, but it got up very quickly the more people you add. It's a per user fee. And yeah, if you have a team that's paid, everybody has to be paid on that. So it may be worth it for a smaller staff because that wouldn't be too expensive, but I don't see the need for our team. Was there a question? I thought I saw a hand back there. All right. Well, I'm going to keep moving on, but like I said, I'll be happy to take questions at the end. Airtable is probably the newest on the list for me, and the one that I probably enjoy using the most. I am an Excel junkie, and I love creating detailed spreadsheets that are so complicated that they break some of our computers. They just use too much memory. And that's really what forced me to start looking for an alternative, was that I could not everybody on our team could open my spreadsheets. The other thing is that we were using it for shared things, so long-range planning, and I needed something that we could be in at the same time, and shared spreadsheets don't work so well. So I actually discovered Airtable on Pinterest, of all places. Being part of our software team, I look up different things for user interface, and there is a picture of Airtable's user interface, and so that's how I stumbled upon them. And after I started using them, I loved it. So it's an online database software. It's kind of a mix between Excel and Access, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. This is a sample view of their UI, user interface. They've got this list of tasks here. They've actually grouped them, although it can be a single table. The thing that is fascinating to me about Airtable is that they are targeting consumers, individual people. Their example cases that they show on their website would be things like if you're going shopping for a house, if you're planning a party. They're not targeting businesses, which means that it's got to be very flexible. And so that was cool. But you create these, what they call bases, databases. The databases all have tables, and all of those have records. And you can interlink all of them and view them in a number of different ways. You can see their app here as well is looking at the same data, but in a very different manner. So they also have a calendar view, which is nice. I don't find that as useful only because it gets a little overwhelming quickly with all the tasks that we have. But they also have a Kanban view, which again we haven't used as much. You'll see there's a lot of similarities between Airtable and Asana. I'll talk about how I use them in a little while. But what you can do is you can set up these cards to pull certain things from the same table. So you can have this one table with all of your information and view it in a number of different ways. And that's really cool. You don't have to show everything all the time. They have this gallery view. So you think about house hunting, you can put all the pictures of the houses and flip through them. For me, when I was moving into a new product group, our ecclesiastical arts products, we have about 8,000 items, 8,000 items as a whole. I think it was 2,000 items in that I had to learn. Putting this into a view like this helped me a lot to learn those things. When you think about that with like members or new members or I don't know, VBS craft ideas, things that you are very visual, you could keep them in that same place. So this is the thing that I think is key, and we'll talk about this for churches in a few minutes, but the ability to create public forms that feed into that database, and share them and not give people access to the database to add it, but pick and choose exactly what you want them to fill out here. So you think about like communication requests. If you want to submit something to the bulletin or the newsletter, just send everybody this one form and it goes in this place. So the things I like about it, and well, actually, before I go too far on that, I should clarify. We use this at work to manage all of our marketing activities. So all of our marketing campaigns and then the individual tasks that go with it. So the emails, the website pages, the social media posts. We use Asana for the work associated with those things. So if we're writing an email, there's a subtask for our copywriter to write the copy, a subtask for our designer to design the imagery, a task for me to schedule it, task for our social media coordinator to post on Facebook. So those all get broken down into subtasks, whereas Airtable is the master table for the final end result. But I also use Airtable as part of my role on church council. I'm our vice president, which means I lead the church council meetings, and I put everything in Airtable. So I have my agenda generated from Airtable, where I keep all of these to-do lists. I have our action items in Airtable tied to agenda items. I take attendance for church council meetings in here, where I can just go ahead and add every person who is at that meeting and see that over time. So there's a lot of flexibility with that. I love having the form to send to everybody else on council to say, if you want to add something to the agenda, submit it here, and it goes right in there. I don't have to take it from their email and put it onto the agenda. It just automatically compiles it. Then it also allows them to at any time go to the action items list and see what's there. I don't know how many of them actually do go. I print it out for them still at the meeting, but I give them that option. So I like that it's similar to Excel. The interface is very flexible. You just click and type. And when I tried to learn Access, I learned it, but it wasn't going to work for me because it was too structured. Excel makes it really easy to just go and manipulate things just like Airtable. But I also like that it's structured like Access. Excel is a bit too unstructured, where you can do just about anything. You can create tables to create some structure. Airtable is based on that structure. You can view the same data in different ways. Like I mentioned before, you have this one set of data where you can view it as a calendar, a Kanban, or a gallery, all of that. And that's a little bit different than Asana. When you set the projects, you have to pick what type of view you have. I like that you can create saved views. So within Airtable, you can take any view and pick filters, and you can hide data points and save that. So we have, on our tactics view that we have, we've probably got 20 to 30 different views saved. Each person has it where it filters it down to their records, but it's all based on the same database. So that's a lot of fun. And then sharing the read-only views. You can take one of these views, share it with a team member, and have them see it but not manipulate the data. And we use this. I know some of the ladies that are over at our booth and our product development team use that for our publishing plan, because you want to be able to share that with certain people internally, but you don't want them throwing their ideas in that without the overall discussion. A few things I don't like about it. It doesn't show subsets very nicely. So I mentioned before that I could take attendance there. I can take a meeting and say attendees and click in there and put all the people that attended. It's hard to view. I don't think the way that they've got that set up is ideal, but at least all the data is referenced or linked together. So it's functional, it's just not as practical as I'd like. Again, no two-way sync with the other applications that I use, and that's a continuous problem, but I'll talk about how we solve that. No reporting on data, although they're in beta testing on reports. So I was looking at that. I'm pretty excited where that should come. So this may eventually come off, but like I can't quickly and easily pull a list of how many emails we have that month, or have a report that says emails by month, things like that. Application for churches, submission forms I think is the key thing, and I've suggested this in a number of different trainings. Because it's free, and a lot of the form builders that are out there are not free, because it goes into this database. It's similar to how like Google Forms would work. You can get that into their version of Excel, Sheets. I don't enjoy that as much, but you can do so much more with it once you have those forms in there. Meeting agendas, minutes, action items, like I said before, to be able to store that all in one place, filter it out by different days, but keep that historical record of it. Any structured data, really, and the more I use Airtable, the more tables I create of things that is structured data that I want to keep. So just a few ideas, like sermons. If you want to keep track of all your sermons, you can upload files to this. So you could keep the the actual text of the sermon. You could do the audio recording, the video recording. Keep it all in that one place and go back and reference it and search it. Contacts. So if you have like the list of all the vendors that you work with and who you're paying bills, you could do that. I wouldn't personally recommend it for all of your members because I do sell a software that does that, but you could use it for that as well. We do all the work for you on our side, but no, you could use it for that. You could use it for member directories and that kind of thing. Keys is another one. It's kind of a silly idea, but to keep track of who has the keys. Yeah, having some kind of structured data with that allows you to keep tabs on where all the keys are. All right, so that is Airtable. I'm going to check my time. Good, I'm doing just fine. So any questions? We'll start with you and then we'll work them back. Yep.
I take it everything we're talking about here is web-based.
All web-based.
So accessible through your browser, is that correct?
Accessible through your browser. Just about every one of them. I don't think Asana has a Windows app. I know Airtable and Slack, maybe not IFTTT either, so I guess half of them. Airtable and Slack have Windows apps, but they're basically just a portal to their web application.
Okay.
So.
And can you mention which of these end up being portable, iPhone, and
All of them.
all of them? Okay.
Yep. So yeah, they all have apps for both types of devices.
Okay, so when you download an app, you're not just using your browser.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and their apps will create a different experience. Again, Airtable is meant for regular consumers, and so their views on their app are different than what you'd view on the desktop, but is meant for ease of entry. So, yes, you had a question?
I noticed when you pulled up the calendar, it was very similar to the Google Calendar. Does it sync one way towards Google Calendar or not at all?
That is a good question. I'm not sure. I don't remember seeing syncs with Google Calendar in there. We don't use Google Calendar, so I haven't tried it myself. But that is a good question. Now, the last tool I'm talking about would probably sync those two together. So if there's not a native integration, I'm sure you could make it work with IFTTT. So, good. Yes?
Storage capacity, we're talking about loading sermons and contacts and keys and all kinds of different stuff. You've got to have a limit.
There are some limits on there. It depends on, they do have a paid plan that allows you to expand more. We do use the paid plan for Airtable because it's based on record limits. I don't think storage limits is, at least I haven't reached it. It is part of their paid plan though. We haven't reached it ourselves though, so it's pretty generous. Record limits, they do have a free plan that goes up to like 1,200 records per day, or per database, I think, which for most practical purposes is more than enough. So, yes.
You're mentioning sermons, PDFs, MP4s, are those resident on your PC or are those cloud?
They would all be cloud. Yep, you'd upload them to the cloud. Yep.
Upload speeds are pretty good?
Yeah, I haven't had any problems, and I've uploaded some big files. So good. Over there, and then we'll get to the back.
Submission forms, can you limit who can log in, or is it just public? Anybody who gets those forms can?
The submission forms are public, but they're read-only, and you can choose which fields show up on them. So yeah, but they would be public. There's no... if there's user management if you have the paid version, but that would be given access to the whole base. So the forms are good. Over here I saw another question. I thought I saw a hand up. Okay, well let's move on to the next one, and I'll be happy to take more questions at the end. All right, Slack. This is one that I think is probably the most popular, the most well-known of the four that I'm showing today. Slack is team communication, and Slack kind of came across CPH I think of it like the blob, where it started at one place and it grew and it grew and it grew until it was company-wide. So our development team started using it. They brought on the CTS, Concordia Technology Solutions team, our support group and all that, and then we brought in marketing, and then we brought the rest of the marketing, and then it went company-wide. And we use it all the time. It's a little bit hard to explain the value of it. We saw that internally. We were using Skype for Business, which is essentially an instant messaging app. And some people are like, well, how is this any different from that? Well, it's a lot different. If you've used it, if you learn how to use it, you'll see the benefits. It's first and foremost messaging, and but you can break it down into conversations and topics. So we use this for all of our internal communication, and my internal emails and internal phone calls have almost disappeared because everybody just goes on Slack. Their apps are very similar to their web experience. So I forgot to read the quote on Airtable before, but Slack brings all your team's communication together, giving everyone a shared workspace where conversations are organized and accessible. And that's really the key here. The difference between an instant messaging service is that in all of the other ones that I've seen, it's based on the people that are involved. Here you can certainly do that. You can have your team of people, but more so you can have your conversations as channels. And so you can have public and private channels. Some of the, at least in an organization our size, some of the public channels can be a little silly sometimes. There's one I think called Food in the House. So anytime there's a food day in a department, they post it on there and people swarm. But we'll have things like customer feedback. We have a voice of the customer channel where everything comes into play. We have any of our product incubations, so ideas on new features and all that. We put that in a different channel. At the church, I could see a variety of different uses, and I know many churches are using that. So you could have your newsletter channel, your bulletin channel, your sermons, your VBS, your Bible studies. And what's nice about this is that you can invite other people to join outside of your own staff. And so you could invite members to come in and join certain channels without giving them full access to everything. So the real difference between this and the other messenger apps, though, becomes the integration. And it's not just conversations, but it's what things can automatically post in Slack. And so you can see there, like you can have meetings integrated, so you get automatic announcements about your meetings. We have one that one of our programmers wrote that puts the cafeteria schedule. So every day at 11 o'clock it posts what's being served in the cafeteria. All built on a database, all automated. You can use it for file uploads. So my presentations for best practices, I uploaded to my own personal channel so that I could log in and download it. So it kind of replaces like a Google Drive or any other kind of file upload service because you can put that in here. You can see that any channel, this one's very similar, but you've got details about it. So you can post the topic of the channel so that people who are joining it know how to use that channel. You can pin items to the top, see the members, see all the shared files. The search up here is the key, and they do it in a variety of ways, but they're trying to make you easy to go back to conversations that you've had before. And so you can see, so you can search by who it was to or who it was from, and what channel it was in, from who, and what topic, and really narrow your search down. Now, their free version has a limit of, I believe it's 10,000 messages max, and then it starts to delete the old ones. Their paid one increases that up to the point, I think, of unlimited, but they do have some non-profit plans. So that's something to look into. Their app, like I said, is very similar. More so than some of the others. The experience is very much the same. I've been using this today to communicate with people back at the publishing house, just straight from my phone. And it's for both Android and Apple, of course. And even that, the experience doesn't change too much. So what I like about Slack, it reduces the internal emails and phone calls. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I get far too many emails as it is. any kind of reduction in emails helps. But the thing that I noticed mostly was the number of internal phone calls. Now, I know in a church office it might be easier rather than calling somebody 2 doors down to go over and talk to them. But when you think about the number of interruptions that this could save, it's a lot easier to just Slack somebody something than to go down and talk to them. And that happens with my team all the time. They'll be sitting literally right outside my window and I'll Slack them rather than call out or walk to them. So it cuts down on personal interaction a little bit, but it also makes that time more valuable too. So I know it's different in the church than in the publishing house, but I think there's a lot of value there. Integrates with everything, and I put everything in quotes because it's not actually everything, but there's a ton of integrations that go into play. And as we talk about the last one here, that only adds to the number of things you can integrate with. So integrates with everything. You can set up automation. We integrate it with Airtable and with Asana, and so when people update things in Asana, it feeds into Slack, and that's why I don't use the Asana inbox, because I have that all in Slack. It's all in that one place. So Airtable, when new things are added, so if a new campaign is started, it goes into a Slack channel. When a new product is proposed, it goes into a Slack channel. And the right people get to see it because they're members of those channels. It focuses discussions on the root reason for the discussion. There will be times where people will say, this discussion isn't really meant for this channel. Take it to another channel. It might be the right people talking about it, but it's in an odd place, which makes it harder to find later on. But you can have more channels for it. And so I actually have since switched my one monitor to make it vertical, and I keep Slack up all the time, and I just have this long list of channels, and I click on the right channel. They also have a really quick keyboard shortcut, Control-K, and allows me to switch between channels without actually clicking on it. But it's fantastic to keep the discussion on topic. And then strong search capabilities. Like I said, that search is just fantastic to find anything. We actually are modeling our new Lutheran Service Builder search off of Slack search because we like it so much. So we're shamelessly stealing it, but I don't think that it's a copyright on search. I know it's not. It's just best practices, and it's not identical. All right, so keyboard shortcuts, like I mentioned, the Control-K to go through things. What I have found, the more I use an app, the more I use keyboard shortcuts, the more the mouse becomes a hindrance between doing things, and Slack really understands that. What I don't like about it, it's a bit of a learning curve. Like I said, some of the people in our organization are like, well, we've got Instant Messenger, why do we need Slack? Until you can really use it and see the benefits, it can take a little bit of time to get everybody on board. And even still at CPH, there's probably a handful of people, maybe 10, 15, that don't regularly use Slack. And out of 200 people, I think that's pretty good. They'll still send me the emails, they'll still make a phone call, but that's okay. Sometimes old habits are hard to break. It brings in a new form of distraction. That's the other dangerous thing with Slack, is that just like email you can suck a lot of time with email. When you get back to your desk and you see all of these different Slack messages that have indicators like new message in this channel, that can take some time to go through. Slack understands that and have added a few things to make it easier to sort through all of your new messages or ignore certain channels. I forgot to mention this in there. The notifications can be set by channel. So if you have some channels that you really want to pay attention to, you can get a desktop notification. If you just want to follow up on that channel on a weekly or monthly basis, you could set that so that there's no notifications whatsoever. All right, doesn't eliminate email. There's still external emails that come through. So I was really hoping to eliminate all my email. I can't do that. That's okay. All right, applications for churches, staff, and volunteer communication. And as Slack has grown in its user base, more and more people are using it for things at work. You could add a Slack account really easily and invite other people to it. You could have your volunteers or your ministry staff all on the same account and just have the right channels set up for those private conversations. Sharing files, at the very least, it's a great way to not only share files, but find the files that were shared at the right point in time. And then privacy and communication. because you can have private channels, private conversations, or public. You can pick and choose where it's best to go. So I think for a lot of things, email can be dangerous because an email is so easy to forward it on to somebody else. Within Slack, it's if you invite somebody to a private channel, everybody knows about it, and you get a warning. They're going to see the history, and you can limit who can do those things. So that's what I like about that from a privacy standpoint. And then ultimately, historical conversations is, we talked about that in a variety of ways. So how many of you are using Slack right now at your congregation? All right, we got one. Good. How many of you, I know we've added a lot of people to the group since I started. How many of you are using or have heard of Slack? Okay, so about half the room. Good. All right, any questions about Slack before I move on to the last one? Yes?
You talked about a learning curve. How long did it take your people to go from kind of using it more?
It depends on the person. I think the bigger learning curve was understanding all the possibilities of, I could use Slack for this. And so for a lot of people it was, okay, how do I message? Once they got that, then they were good, but they didn't figure out the best way to use it in other ways. Slack works with a lot of bots, and so you can have things like reminder sets to say, remind so-and-so of this at this time on this date and all that. So all of the additional tools that come in, I think, are where the learning curve really comes into play. That's where the value is. So the longer it takes to understand that value, the harder it takes to gain that acceptance of, okay, this is a really good tool that I can rely on, as opposed to just a messaging tool. So, yes?
And do you set it up, does every person have their own account, or is there like a church account, so to speak, and everyone has a user?
It would be more like that. You'd have the church account and then invite the users by login.
Is there a limit on channels?
I don't think so. I think the limit comes in on messaging. So it's been a little while since we used the free one for CPH. We created a different account for all of our blog authors at CTS, and so that was a free one. But we didn't come anywhere close to meeting the messages on that. So yes.
Free version suitable for small to intermediate, or just small only?
I think small to intermediate. It depends on how much you use that, but I think it would take a long time to get to 10,000 messages. I'm pretty sure that's the limit. They've made some plan changes, but I don't think it would. I think a medium-sized church could benefit from the paid plan over time, but it also isn't that expensive.
Monthly fees, typically, $20, $30?
I'm not sure. I don't pay the bill on that one. I probably should have put that in here. Again, I'm not trying to sell the value, not sell the software. So, but it's not hundreds of dollars a month by any means for a small staff. I saw one over here, and then we'll come back. Maybe not. All right.
So you said there's 10,000 or how many messages, whatever the limit is.
Mm-hmm.
Is that within a certain period of time and then it starts over again?
It's just rolling, so it won't save your
It's just the
10,000.
saving.
Yep, exactly.
So the tutorials are there. How do you educate your folks? You got to get smart at it first if you're the one who started.
Sure.
Then what's the best way to do that?
They've got a number of training videos, and in fact, when we rolled this out to the company, we were playing their videos in the training sessions. We had one gentleman lead it and talk about how we're using it, but then the training videos show how to use the tool. And I think that's really where it comes in, is having a plan for how we at our church are going to use it and explaining that, and then relying on their tools to say, okay, here's how you search, here's the keyboard shortcuts, those kind of things. But it's so flexible, and that's with all of these, that it really depends on how you want to use it as a church. And so that's where the rollout, having a point person, is going to be key. So good question, though. Yes?
So this kind of goes with all the different paths you're talking about, but some people embrace technology, some don't. So if the ones that aren't using it, do they just kind of get left behind the bus? But
They.
as a business, you can probably tell people they're required to church.
You would think so. That doesn't always happen. It's just like in a church. I think it comes down to that value. When you show them how it saves time, how it makes their life easier, some people may require a little bit of additional coaching for them to see it, where others can discover the value on their own. I think that's going to be key. But if you say this is what we are doing as a church, we help a lot of churches roll out software, and that's the buy-in. Is you say, okay, this is the direction we're heading, and it's not so much of the law side of things, like you have to do this. It's here's why we're doing this. Here's how it's going to benefit us. Here's how it's going to benefit our ministry. If at that point they're still having trouble accepting that, then it could be simply a coaching issue. If after that, then it might be an attitude issue. But you wait till you get through those first phases first before assuming it's an attitude issue. Because you're right, technology can be scary for new people to adopt, but playing up the value is going to make them more eager to learn. So, good. All right, well, let's move on to the last one, and this is the one that really pulls it all together. It didn't sound like many people had heard of IFT. I know you had. Anybody else here heard of IFT? Okay, we got a couple hands. So, IFT stands for if this then that. It says IFT helps your apps and devices work together in new ways. So they do a lot with what's called the Internet of Things, all of the devices in your houses, in your homes that are becoming smarter and connected to the internet. So things like light switches and thermostats and all of that. So you can set, we'll look at that in a second. You can connect things like Amazon Echo to Google. You could change your light bulb when your Uber arrives, change the color of your lights if you have smart light bulbs. This is another one they put out there. You could send your Evernote things to Slack. These are a few of the examples that I pulled from their website. These are the apps that I have set up. So what IFT is you create an account with IFT. You bring in your accounts from these other areas, so you connect them in there, and it requires I can't even say that word. Thank you. Authentication, where you sign into these other apps, and then it's giving IFT certain limits, certain access to do things on your behalf. And so the more of these that you build together, the more that they can work together. And so you can see a number of the ones that I have. So you've got Airtable in there, you've got Asana. I had to cut this off. Slack is on there as well. But even your social media accounts, they have a number of other things there too. Like the Android devices, you can do things with your device. So we'll look at a few examples in a minute, but like if your battery goes low, send a message to say, hey, my battery's running low. Yes?
So when you say that they connect to more than one app at once, does that mean I can post to more than one other app?
You would create what's called an applet, and so you would create multiple applets that say, if this thing happens, then post it here, and then the same thing, if this happens, then post it here. So one of the things that I have is if somebody tags me in a photo on Facebook, upload it to my OneDrive account. I could also say if somebody tags me, send it to Twitter or something like that. That applet I use so that when my wife tags me in photos, it can go into our photo account on OneDrive, and I don't lose that or have to do it manually. But yeah, you can create as many of them. You also have multi-step applets, so you could do that one action and multiple reactions. So the one this, then that, and do multiple that's. So. Good. All right. So here's some examples. Log your completed Uber tips in a spreadsheet, or get tomorrow's weather forecast every evening. I'm not sure what the OK Google It's Movie Time is, but I think that means turn off the lights and turn up the volume on my speakers kind of thing. Get a phone call reminder when there's a birthday on your Google Calendar. That's one I should set up because I'm terrible at remembering birthdays. I do have one that every Sunday night at 7:30, send me a text to take out the garbage. And that reminds me that back when we were using a babysitter, I had one to write a check for the babysitter. Because I'll check my text messages where I don't always check my email at home during the day, but I'll get notified that way. So I have one that's set up that says, if I miss a call from my wife, send me an email. Because there'll be plenty of times when I'm in a meeting and I turn my phone off, but I'll usually have my laptop pulled up. So if I happen to see that she called, I can see that. Little things like that are nice time savers. They put all of these applets out there and are available for you. So yeah, wake up every morning with the weather report. I don't know if we want to do that during the winter. But you can go and see what other people have posted and then apply it to your own account. So you don't have to come up with all of these on your own. So what I like about it, integrates apps without native integration. And what I mean by native integration is that the two software companies got together and said, here's how we're going to integrate. Or one of them says, here's how you integrate with us, and the other has to set that up. It allows you to come up with those connection points based on your own creativity. They're practical time savers for home and work. Now, I mentioned there's a little caveat before with IFT. We are not using IFT at CPH. Because we are using a tool called Zapier. Zapier has the same concept, but is with more business applications. So I use IFT personally all the time, and I use it with my church stuff too. But we don't use it at work just because we have another tool that does that. And Zapier is great. I think for most of the tools that a church would use, IFT will suffice and do it. Zapier also has a fee associated with it where IFT is free. It allows me to create or imitate. So I can think of, oh, it'd be nice if I did this and go set up, or I can just browse through all of their applets and like, I never would have thought of this. Let me go ahead and add that in there, like the birthday call phone reminders. What I don't like about it, it's a bit of a learning curve as well, because you have to walk through that process of setting it up. And you can't do everything in every app through IFT. So they have triggers and actions. So some apps will only have one or the other, where you can only set off the trigger like if a new email arrives, but you might not be able to send an email. That one's probably not true, but that's the kind of an example. It does require creativity, although you can lean on the creativity of others, which is good. Mostly for personal use. Zapier is better for business applications. But again, for the church, I think this is the best tool for you. So what I have, applications for churches, and we're really going to get into this in a little bit more detail. So notifications in a variety of ways. So when you think about the actions that you can take, whether it's getting a phone call, getting an email, getting a text. Depending on your preferred notification preferences, you could set up applets to notify you of things. Voice on the go at home or in the office. How many of you have a voice-enabled device like an Echo or a Google Home? All right, so not quite half the room, but I'm guessing that next time Christmas comes around, another set of hands will go up. That's a big thing that's continuing to grow. Again, the Internet of Things and the ease of use of being able to speak things. When I first got my Echo, I didn't think we'd use it too much, and we're continuing to use it more and more. I'll tell you, the best thing that's happened with my Echo is that our laundry gets moved on time now, because it's a lot easier to just walk past and say, Alexa, set a timer for 70 minutes as opposed to going up and setting an actual timer. So our laundry moves much better now with this voice. But you could do other things. I can now say, Alexa, add something to my to-do list, and it'll go in and put that on Asana for me. I don't have to stop and type it in myself for things like grocery lists. So depending on what apps you use, IFT can integrate those together. And the other thing is, saving 2 minutes is still saving 2 minutes. In the church, there's never enough time to do everything that we want to do. If you can save just 2 minutes, a lot of these are really little things, but if you can save those 2 minutes, it's great. You've got 2 more minutes to do something else. I don't think this is going to be life-changing or ministry-changing, but it is going to make your life easier in a lot of ways. So, I'm going to take questions on IFT in a second. I've got a few examples of how to use it. So, but Amy, if you had a question, I can answer that.
I did. Is the login via Facebook, Google, or can you use a specific email that connects to it?
I know that they allow you to log in with your Facebook or Google, but I think you can create your own account as well from an email.
I'm thinking of the Friday.
Sure, yeah. I don't think you have to have one of those other accounts. I think I originally set it up with my Gmail, and now I log in with either Gmail or Facebook. But when I created it several years ago, I just used my Gmail account. Yes, sure.
I saw that it was applicable to like the Facebook pages. Can you link more than one page?
That's a good question. I haven't tried that. I think so, because it's going to be based on your user. So if your user is manager of more than one page, you should be able to select which page you have. Because I know that within, I think like within Airtable, I get to pick which database I can put it in because it's my one user. So it should be just fine with that. All right, what I have to wrap all of this up is a number of integrations that make these tools work together. And so hopefully this will spark some creativity. These are by no means an exhaustive list. And then I'll be happy to spend some time taking questions on everything else at the end. So, action items. I mentioned that before. When an action item is assigned to me, I now have it go to Asana and add that to me. So I add it to my to-do list. And I use that through IFT. This is one that I set up right after I took over church council to make sure that I didn't miss any of my action items, because it's hard to hold other people accountable if I'm not doing my own action items. So that worked out really well. All I have to do, it looks at my Airtable database and says, in this table, when there is a new task assigned to Peter, send it to Asana. It doesn't do that for everybody, it's just for mine. But that was real easy to set up. Completed tasks, this is one that we use at CPH. When a task is marked as completed in a specific project, let me know in Slack. And you could set up multiple applets like this, or you could just have one project that is your notification project that you can assign all your tasks to, so you are always notified of that. So that works out well. There are some integrations between Asana and Slack that will do this as well, so you may not even need to go through IFT. But this is a great example because it could be, if you have a different to-do app, you could sync that with Slack as well via IFT. And really, you could replace Slack with anything. When a task is completed, send me a text. Give me a phone call. I don't know if you'd want that many phone calls, but you could do those things.
Peter,
Yeah.
on that one, are you assigning the channel? I know that it's assigned in Slack, but do you also have to put that into Asana a certain way so that it does read in IFT and move it to Slack?
It would be looking at a specific project. So you would want to assign it to some kind of project that is your notifications one. You could probably, I haven't tried this one, but I would think that you could say if a new task is created in Asana, automatically assign it to that notifications project. Something like that. But really, being able to inform people when things are done without having to personally stop what you're doing and go and tell so-and-so that I completed this is a nice little time saver and keeps everybody in the loop. Sign-up forms, taking that concept from Airtable of creating a sign-up form, but saying when somebody signs up here, then send a notification to me using IFT's own notification tools. And so you can find out, there's a bulletin announcement that needs to get in there. Put that in my email. And then you could keep all of that in one place so that you know what you're looking for. There's a number of other ways. I think the next one is kind of similar to this, hospital visits. So when a person is added to the list of hospitalized members, send it out in IFT, or send it through IFT to Slack, or send pastor a text, or do these other special kind of notifications, and make sure that people are informed of that. So those are just a few examples. Let me put this up on the screen and let you take down all of the URLs, and I'll probably land back on that. But what questions do you have about what I've presented? Yes?
The product would conveniently convert an email to a text and send out multiple copies.
You could probably do a number of things. My first step would be that I would send that email to Asana and have that send it into using IFT, anything added to Asana to send to that text. Although I would guess, depending on what email and what kind of ways you want to filter that down. So if it was something with a certain word, then you could probably use that and say, forward it to myself with text in it, and then forward it on.
A simple prayer list. I have now getting people who want both email and text. Creating both of those just takes an extra 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think that you would be able to do that pretty easily. Now that I think about it, you probably wouldn't even need to go through Asana. If you just forward it to yourself with a certain subject line, that's what it would be looking for, is some way to, and sorry, that's where if would be looking for, that says, if an email comes in with this in the subject line, then text it to this. Yep.
So
You got it. Exactly. That's probably the best way to do that. That's where this is kind of like, you have to think through the process of which ones. Yes?
Does Airtable have a widget that is accessible to WordPress websites?
I don't know of any widgets, but I know that it gives you the embed code. So with the forms, it just gives you a little block of HTML that you add in there. And we've used that several times. So that works out really well. The paid version allows you to customize the look and feel a little bit more, but the free version works just as well. You have the Airtable branding at the bottom, but nobody really cares about that. So that's probably better than they're just as easy as a widget. I won't say better than a widget, but just as easy. Good. Yes?
Okay, so a lot of this is beyond me, so.
Sure, that's okay.
What I'm looking for is an easier way to communicate with my comfort dog team. I've got a team of handlers and helpers that manage to cover all the events that he has on his Google Calendar. So I get an event that comes up, and I need to let the handlers and the helpers know so that they can man the events. Is this, any of those, something that would assist in that? Because right now, on my iPhone, I can only send out 10 texts, and I've got more than 10 handlers and more than 10 helpers, and it's multiplicity, and it just makes me crazy. And not this group can't see this group's responses. Is any of, should I be thinking about any of this and learning to assist in that process?
I could see a number of ways. I could see you creating an Airtable, a database of the events, that when a new event is added to that, that gets notified in IF to send out something to those handlers. I could also see if you got everybody on Slack being that a way, so you send it from IF through Slack, and then the conversation can happen there.
And there's no limit to how many it goes out to at a time.
With if you're doing individual text messages, I think you would have to add each one in there. I don't believe there's a limit on the additional ones. There might be a different service for mass texting on that. But yeah, I think there's a couple of ways you could do that, but probably I would start with the Airtable thing and then let the notifications come from that. So yeah, either if Slack would be the preferred one, because then everybody can communicate back and forth. You could probably also send it as like a group email. I'm not sure if it would be a group text, but maybe. But certainly you could do a group email.
It's better to text than they do
Sure.
emails. They're checking those.
Oh, I understand, absolutely.
So, yeah, I need a way for them, I need to get text stuff out to a bigger group and then have each other see who is
Sure.
responding to cover or not cover. And then that goes back to the scheduler.
Yeah.
So that we can get it in the books. So Slack is the first thing that I should investigate.
Because it's built all around that communication part of it, and it's really easy to set it up so that Airtable, any new event gets added in there. So, did you have a comment on that
That's
one?
what I was going to just say. I think getting all the handlers connected into Slack, because you do have to send invitations to each one of these folks
Get it set up.
to get it set up.
Right.
Once they accept the invitation, get their information in there, all you have to do is create it in Airtable, and that notification, again, using
Goes to everybody.
that notification will be sent automatically, and it's going to cut down on your end, because those folks are going to say, I'm available, and it's just automatically going to propagate back to Airtable.
Yep.
You guys are scaring me, because now I gotta learn Slack.
Well, and again, as we go back to the first part, these are tools for your toolbox, and they all do serve several purposes, but there's not a one-size-fits-all tool for each of them. But the more you learn that, so creating an event in Airtable, you could then track other details about the event in that same location. And so
Does any of this talk to his Google Calendar, which is what we currently use to keep his...
that would probably be through IFT as well, is that you'd create that event and then you could create an applet that would add it to the calendar too.
Do you want to come to Napa?
I'd be happy to talk through it with you. Yes, I saw a question back there.
I was just going to say remind.com.
Remind is a good one.
Handles text messaging.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can talk to you a little bit afterwards if it fits your needs or something else you said.
Well, and you bring up a good point. For texting services, I'm sure there's other texting services that go into IFT. IFT just has a native text message for notifications, but I would almost guess that Remind might be in there too in IFT, that you could create it and go directly from IFT to Remind. So
GroupMe
good.
is another group text messaging.
GroupMe?
What is it, group me?
GroupMe is another group text messaging
That's-
that doesn't get messed up between iPhones and Androids, and it's all in one
Good.
feed. It looks very similar to Slack. It's all in one feed, but you don't have the event coordinating capabilities like Airtable would have.
Okay.
A database of events.
Right.
It's just like a group text message.
Usually it's just a one-shot deal in between when these things come up. So I'm thinking, what I think I'm hearing is less complicated would be to go with.
Yeah, Remind and GroupMe are very similar.
That's
And do you
great.
have to invite people on those like you would?
Yes,
the
GroupMe you do.
Slack?
I feel.
Okay.
Yeah, I know a lot of the
Via
text.
text, you give them a number and a code to text you the one time, then
They're set up in there.
Actually, you can take people in Remind and put them in,
yeah.
and you just put everybody in there.
That's awesome.
Get their permission to do it.
Yeah.
Great. That's right. Good. Yeah, another question.
I take it that Slack then takes over, is alternate from your message inbox, your general, so you're not, if you're in a group text, if you've ever been on a message group text, your phone's going off all the time, as random people are going back, so.
Yes.
So, and is your general text, if somebody who doesn't know me texts, that just goes to regular message, Slack doesn't, it has to be through the Slack app to be in the Slack app.
Yeah, you would use Slack to replace it, but in terms of how people communicate with you, but it wouldn't automatically replace your text messaging. So
Second
that would still be
one,
there.
are there any of these that do text to voicemail, voice call?
I don't know of any, but I would guess that there probably is a service that does
But
that.
it did, though, if it said it, with the if, you could connect and say if this happens, so if you get a text from this person, you can have them have it come through as a call or.
Yeah, it could call you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Okay.
Good. Well, a couple things before we finish up. I wanted to ask, what apps do you use most that we didn't talk about it? So hearing about Remind and you said GroupMe. Good. Those are good examples. Any others that you guys use on a regular basis?
I use is it Trello?
Trello? Yep.
I use that one for personal stuff, because I'm a deployed worker, my company's in St. Louis, so I like the reporting function of it for accountability, so I could send it to my boss if need be.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think Trello works really well with IFT as well. Yeah, and so you'd be able to use those same tools. Trello is the one that they're kind of competing with Asana in a variety of ways, but I think they've really found their niche on the Kanban view and some of the other kind of individual notifications that go with that, so that are native to Trello. So that's a great one. We use that for a few key projects at CPH. So, good. You, and then I'll go over here.
We do everything on Google Docs. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Google Docs just because I'm so used to Word, but we write sermons in Google Docs. That way all the pastors can see what's going on. All of our curriculum is put on there, so all the people who are teaching and doing stuff, everything can be seen by everybody through an app or online. And it makes it so much easier than having to email 7 or 8 different emails to people to get them what they need.
Oh, absolutely. I love how they use it here for the Best Practices Conference, because you can go in. It's always fun to see how many other people are looking at the schedule right now, too. Yep.
But you can do it with all their stuff. I mean,
Right.
It's not just one thing. We use everything in there but slides.
Yep.
But other than that, we used everything in it.
Oh, yeah. And I know what they're doing with classrooms, too, and for teachers. Those tools are fantastic. My wife uses that all the time. Yes, you had a question.
We just had a question.
Mhm.
So if you learn all of this in 2 years, are we learning new things all over again?
Yep, that's how technology changes. Now, I would guess with many of these, based on how they're growing, they'll still be there. They'll be different, but better, not vastly different. So good. A few things before you go. CordyTechnology.org/blog is our technology in your ministry blog. Yes, we have different authors from across our church body who will contribute to this. We make it very clear that this is not a product sales blog. So you may see a few mentions of our products here and there, but it's very rare, and we have other blogs about our products. And so this is all just about helping people leverage technology in their ministry. We also are doing weekly Facebook Lives. So we just hosted one a few hours ago with Bill Johnson from the Concordia Theological Seminary in Fort Wayne, talking about how to evaluate new technology for your ministry. And so we focus on communications and management as kind of our two major themes, but we'll branch out from time to time. So this is one that Katie Munson wrote for us, and we had a great Facebook Live with her 2 weeks ago, I think it was now, or was that last week? But either way, you can go watch that. That's all on our Facebook page. And then there's my contact information one more time. I have cards in the back. I'm always willing to talk to you if you'd like to throw some ideas by me or see if I know about a certain technology. I'd love to talk with you. And then I also have sign-up sheets if you don't mind filling that in, so that you can, I can email you these slides so that you can take them back and review them. And also, if our Facebook Live recording worked, we'll send you that link too. So thank you guys very much.